I think the relegation matches in particular, they just like the difference between the state matches and the relegation matches is just you feel the stress, especially when it comes down to like the late game. Like when you're winning, you don't really feel as much because you just feel like you're the better team. But then when you're starting to lose and like it's the game 5, like it really hits you. And I'm hoping that it won't happen this time.
Yeah, it was pretty surprising there because they seemed to do pretty good from this game when they were, down game 1, losing game 2, late game. The other team steals an Elder Dragon, and they seem to bounce back just fine.
Yeah, so they seem like they already got the playing from behind thing down pat, so maybe nothing for Apollo to worry about. But welcome back, everyone. We're about to get into game number 3 of Team EnVy versus Gold Coin United. And Team EnVy in game number 2, as you mentioned, after a loss in game number 1, they reassessed the way that they were looking at the draft. It wasn't necessarily the most cohesive draft, but they did draft very specifically to get winning lane matchups pretty much all across the board.
Yeah, I think that was a big part of it was, especially in the bot lane, where early on, there was a ton of support bans in the first game. This time, they were able to get the Lulu first pick and use that to hang even with the bot lane in game 2. And then as the game went on, Hakuho did a great job roaming around the map, following up on what his team wanted to do, showing good synergy between him and Lyra. And as the game went later and later, they were able to make a lot of big plays over the course of this game. And that was something that they obviously struggled with in game 1, having a 0.8 KDA compared to game 2's 13.5 KDA.
Yeah, so very strong performance out of the bottom lane from the side of Team EnVy. However, the side of Gold Coin United, things went a little bit differently compared to their game number 1. While Phoenix still had an extremely powerful laning phase, he wasn't necessarily the same split push threat in the later stages of the game and was not able to get a couple of key shockwaves off into these team fights.
Yeah, there were a number of situations that ended with Phoenix still having his shockwave up, and he is kind of the hard carry here for the side of Gold Coin United, and the team as a whole plays around him fairly well, but this time around Ninja got the better of him in a lot of these late game situations. Ninja actually had the highest damage overall in that game on the Ari pick, which is a little surprising because sometimes she tends to struggle in these later games to keep her damage numbers up, and Orianna can kind of take over. But with a bunch of those team fights ending with no Orianna shockwave, punishing them in those kind of clumped up Baron situations, you see that Ninja definitely outperformed Phoenix in game 2.
Yeah, the lane phase still went in Phoenix's favor, however. He was up about 500 to 550 gold at 15 minutes, but Ninja really became unlocked in the later stages of the game. We've already, one of the things we criticized Ninja for was his positioning in some of these team fights in the later stages of the game on picks like the Cassiopeia that really matter in the later stages of the game, but his Ari was dashing and flashing and charming very crucial targets in these fights.
Right, I think, Ninja's always been a player who does pretty well on playmaking champions. You can kind of think of him a little bit like a Huhi, so sometimes he goes for something and it looks awful, and sometimes he goes for something and it's amazing. And in that game 2 was a lot more of these kind of amazing plays, and so when you put him on something like a Talon or like an Ari, he tends to shine. And in that game, being able to pick off Phoenix, or not even kill him, but get him low enough that Phoenix couldn't focus on landing a good shockwave, really controlled what Phoenix could do in the late game.
And speaking of control, there was a lack of that from the side of Gold Coin United in game number 2. Santorin was not able to get the earlier advantages that he did in game number 1, was shut down by Lyra for first blood, basically didn't even have his bottom side of the jungle for the first clear of the jungle because Lyra was up in his face from the get-go.
Yeah, from basically the second minute onwards, Lyra was asserting his dominance over that game. And this time around, EnVy sticking on the blue side, so 3 games of blue side, and we see them kind of keeping their bans from game 2, thinking that worked out. Gold Coin United also keeping their bans so far. I wonder how much of a run back we're actually going to see, because I think Gold Coin United was pretty happy with their draft. They probably look at that and say, if we don't let Lyra crush us in the early game, we can maybe win this. If Phoenix plays a little bit better in the late game, maybe we can win this. So I'm just curious on how much they're actually going to want to change up here in game 3.
I feel like a lot of teams usually tell themselves if Lyra's not able to crush us in the early game, we can probably win this against
And a lot of people end up wrong. Lyra generally crushes people in the early game.
Most of the time. It looks like the same exact bans from game number 2, I believe, going to be out here. The Elise, the Rumble, and the Ziggs. That leaves the Lulu open as the first pick as EnVy banned away the Vladimir, the Camille, and the Zyra. So once again, Hako going to get his hands on what's probably his most successful support pickup.
Yeah, we're going to see if Gold Coin United goes with the Ashe first pick again. And the Shen, it looked all right last game. Once again, I think the big problem was the jungle mismatch, like we talked about, and the fact that the bot lane had a pretty good performance. Looks like they don't want to give over that Graves once again, grabbing that one first.
Yeah, so Santorin's going to be on a different look of jungler, something that he has performed extremely well on himself. You mentioned Lyra was a little bit more of the invading and up-in-your-face style of Graves, abusing that kind of dueling potential, whereas when Santorin usually has his pickups about counter-jungling, being where your opponent is not, and continuing to press advantages through vision controls. Now they're actually going to pick an extremely early tank as well. The Nautilus will be locked in when that Shen is still available.
Yep, Goldcoin United ditching their red side plan that they seemingly had for the first 2 games. No Ashe first pick, no Shen, going for the Graves and the Nautilus. Still want to tank for solo, but it looks like they want to give him a better lane matchup because he had been getting pushed in by Seraph pretty heavily there in game 2 and was a big place that, you know, EnVy was able to abuse. Lyra went up there a little bit later on and took the turret down, so getting him on a stronger top laner this time around.
Yeah, and while the jungle pick has been taken from the side of Goldcoin United, EnVy will respawn with one of their own, so that won't get banned out in the second ban phase here. A Lee Sin pick for Lyra, and this has been, well, one of Lyra's go-to champions all split long.
Yeah, we talked about how Santorin plays the Lee Sin pick a little bit more control-oriented. Lyra is a bit more of the playmaker type, still a very focused on getting any advantage he can, so sometimes it's just a CS lead through invading and things like that in vision, but when he sees an opportunity to strike, he goes hard, so we'll have to keep our eye on him once again in the early game. Kind of always the guy to watch when you're watching EnVy.
Yep. The matchup between these two junglers has really been the one we've focused on, although the bottom side of the map here, it looks like it's going to be a run back for the 3rd game in the row. The Varus being picked up here for Apollo, the Ashe being picked up here for MASH, and we get into the second wave of bans. Everybody's pretty much matched up across the board, except there's a top laner compared to a support here for the side of Goldcoin United versus EnVy. So we see top laners being focused down by Goldcoin United's first ban with the Renekton off the table for Seraph.
And you might see some supports coming in for EnVy. No surprise to see the Karma banned away. The more curious will be what they do with their second ones, because here GCU can ban away that Shen to make sure that they don't have to worry about being a global deficit. And on the side of EnVy, maybe they go for that Nami pick, trying to hold down the strong, supportive champions.
Yeah, well, the Shen being banned away. And of course, there is still the Malzahar, which has been banned away multiple times, but Lulu was generally considered a good matchup or a counter pick into the Malzahar to begin with. So EnVy may not feel pressure to ban that one away. You mentioned the Nami for Mad Life in game number 1. Extremely effective. We'll see if EnVy tries to take that one off the tables. We'll also have to kind of figure out what it is going to be for Seraph in this matchup here. The Camille's been banned away, the Renekton's been banned away. I mean, Rumble is still open. This could be one of those matchups where you pick the carry top laner into the tank.
Yeah, and get to see the Thresh ban come in as well. A little bit of a respect to Mad Life. Don't want to let him get his hands on that one. I think the either the Nami or Malzahar makes some sense. Obviously with the Ashe, when you hit 6, you can do the chain CC with the Malzahar. And with the Nami, you just have a little bit stronger laning. Here, not wanting to let the Orianna go over to Team EnVy, they're actually going to grab it blind earlier on.
Yeah, and that's still with the Ahri available, which Ninja, like we said, struggled in the lane phase. However, once the lane phase was over, his Ahri was very crucial in some of these team fight situations, whereas it was kind of the opposite for Phoenix's Orianna. It wasn't as impactful in team fights as it was in the lane phase.
Yeah, it's definitely a little reverse of what you would expect in the matchup. And even given the play styles of these two players, I'm surprised that Goldcoin United is not putting a higher emphasis on giving Phoenix a counter pick and letting him trying to smash Ninja, because for the first 2 games, it definitely seems like he gets the better of him in the laning phase. And then if you give him an actual snowball champion who can win the matchup hard, as opposed to play the losing side and win it, maybe Phoenix can have a greater impact over the mid game and limit what Lyra is able to do. So gonna see them go with the strategy a second time around, Orianna into Ahri, and see if it works for them. Team EnVy going with the Maokai pick, matching up with just some standard tanks in the top lane, and there's that Nami pick coming in for a GC.
Yeah, so this is something that we recall. Tank versus tank matchup, Maokai versus Nautilus on the top side of the map. Mad Life's Nami pickup was quite effective for this Ashe-Nami combination in game number 1. We'll see if it is as effective for Goldcoin United here, now moving into a tied series in game number 3. There's definitely a lot more team fight pressure from the side of GCU. Not saying there wasn't in game number 2, but the Ashe, the Nami, the Orianna all combo together extremely well in that circumstance.
Right, I think almost across the board you can say that they scale just as well or better. Maokai will be a little bit better than Nautilus, but you lose some of the early game pressure. Similar, what we said was similar between Ahri and Orianna is usually the Ahri has a little bit of an advantage early on, but apparently Phoenix makes matchups not matter.
It's true. He kind of has that interesting nullification factor to himself, where it doesn't really matter what side of the matchup he's going to be on. He decides to wind up winning it anyway. Although the Orianna pickup too, since that was a blind Orianna with the Ahri still available, the other option on the table that was banned away from Phoenix was the Cassiopeia, but the Orianna's really good into that matchup too, so he wasn't necessarily going to wind up blind picking that.
Yeah, for sure. And like we said, it's a little surprising to see them not being willing to give over the Orianna pick and you know, play the Ahri into it or something. I know Phoenix has a decent Ahri, and instead they're opting for the late game team fight impact, thinking that these games have not been super explosive. They've generally gone late. Maybe that's why they're focusing more on making sure that they have good late game team fighting here as we load into game 3.
Yeah, the games have gone late. This series is tied up at 1 apiece, and you, of course, can let us know who you think is going to win. Hashtag EnVyWin, hashtag GCUWin. You can tweet that over to @LOL Esports and let us know who you think is going to come out ahead. It's a tied series right now, Mark. You said it's game number 3. Let's get in the game.
And one thing I want to talk about is the Mad Life Nami from game 1. We didn't hit on it too much because there was a lot of stuff happening, but it was actually pretty impressive overall. He landed a couple bubbles, and that's one of the big things about Nami is in lane, she's a little mindless. Like, anyone can play Nami. You press W, you get some bounces, you put your E on your AD carry, and you generally don't actually throw your bubble out because it's a big threat tool, so you don't use it too often. And if you land them, great. If you don't, it's not too big of a deal. But out of laning phase, the bubble is one of the most important parts of Nami's kit, as well as her ultimate, which are the two harder things to use. And out of lane phase, Mad Life was actually very impressive on the pick.
Yeah, being able to lock down key targets in fights and just being able to peel for key targets on his own team to keep them alive was a very big influential factor as to how GCU came out ahead in game number 1. But it was also Hakuo's Lulu in game number 2 that was a big driving force as to why EnVy were able to eventually break the base, take down multiple towers, and get up in the face of Gold Coin United to take that game's victory.
You saw a lot of synergy between Lyra and Hakuho. Even in that first invade around the bot side jungle, Hakuho had made sure to leave lane, roam up to meet up with Lyra, and then when Mad Life tried to wrap around on the Karma to cut off Lyra, Hakuho was already there and chunked him out as well. So Hakuho having a really good bounce back game too, after he was not forced onto that melee Braum pick, which feels just awful into the Nami.
No, well, EnVy have not had a lot of success in game number 3 throughout the course of the NA LCS. Of course, though, this is a best-of-5 series, and we'll at least be going to 4 games, so look at to forge a new path and see what their record is in game number 4 is after this one.
Right. Maybe they're awful at game 3s, they lose this one, but then they're incredible in game 4 and 5. Who knows?
Listen, they are the best team in North American LCS for the first 20 minutes, but they still wind up being 10th place somehow. So I'm not going to be surprised.
Can't be shocked anymore.
Exactly. This definitely has the makings of a full 5-game series, and I'm super excited for it.
We'll have to see what Lyra chooses to do on the Lee Sin pick. Talk about how much of a playmaker this guy is on arguably the highest playmaking jungler right now.
Yep. Meanwhile, we have Santorin picking up a Graves, one of his own kind of fan favorites. He tends to be a little bit more farm-centric on this pickup, but looking to do the same kind of thing that Lyra did in the last game. Starts on his red buff side and immediately moves over towards his opponent's blue buff to try to contest this one. But
there's that hawk shot.
We'll see if Lyra is going to be as afraid as Santorin was about this blue buff debacle. Multiple members of GCU are collapsing, though. Ninja's going to be coming up from there as well. With Solo already moved down here. Santorin dashing into Lyra here. The flash forward from Solo will burn the flash out from Lyra, but Ninja throws out the Orb of Deception. Now Seraph has joined the fray. The smite away from Santorin secures the blue buff, but now they've turned down onto Solo. This is a very low-level fight, so not a lot of abilities off cooldown here. It's getting chaotic on the front and the backside. It looks like it's going in favor of GCU as Solo picks up first blood off that undertow. A double kill picked up for the Nautilus as he just ticks away on the Maokai, and now Ninja has to turn all 9 tails and run.
The Graves takeaway coming up huge just 3 minutes into the game, netting GCU a double kill. I like the way that Lyra was playing that for a little bit there, trying to use the blue buff as a little bit of a meat shield as he walked up on the lower level Santorin, but the one thing he's not accounting for is the Nautilus already being in range, can no longer really fight him about it. Trades flash for flash here, and then the re-engage is just too aggressive. Ninja already chunked out compared to Phoenix, and GCU way more grouped up here. We see Ninja try and get involved, but they're able to focus them down one at a time. Phoenix gets that 1v1, and then Santorin having a lot more burst damage over the course of this fight.
And Solo getting his shield proc back up, gets the red buff, and that ticks away to wind up picking up a kill onto Sarah. So that is massive advantages for what we thought was going to be a boring tank versus tank matchup in the top lane.
Yeah, double kill on Nautilus can actually be a little bit more oppressive than you might think. Getting that double Doran's ring early, has the red buff, has the level advantage, and has the wave frozen on his side right now. Not too much fun if you're Seraph here.
Yeah, Solo looking to potentially be a solo carry in this matchup here is now EnVy normally used to getting some early game advantages, are going to be playing a little bit on the back, but already a 1,000 gold deficit about 4.5 minutes in this game. 90% of that is going to be on solo. A little bit of that's going to be on Santorin. He's picked up 2 assists. Most importantly, Phoenix was just kind of playing zoning duties in that entire fight, so he and Ninja both wind up getting nothing out of that one. So this mid lane matchup not going to be as disadvantaged as that top lane matchup for Envy.
Right, and we talk about how tank versus tank, it's usually not the end of the world if you end up you know, falling behind in that one, but there's a degree to that, and right now Seraph is pushed up to the maximum of that degree because normally Nautilus wins this matchup anyways with these early kills, the extra pressure, with the potential of Graves making his way back up there. You might see Seraph suddenly become the main point of focus for GCU's early game plan.
Yeah, meanwhile, Santorin and Lyra have made themselves back on the top side of this map. Santorin, level advantage over Lyra, has put a ward down on onto the Wolf camp. So Santorin taking a page out of Lyra's book, playing this Graves extremely aggressive, which is kind of a breath of fresh air because we normally don't see Santorin play this aggressively on the Graves pick.
Yeah, he even in the Challenger Series, he had a lot of invades that he would do for stealing away camps from people, but a lot of it was like more pathing invades where he knows where the other person is and he knows where there's an opening to try and steal some camps. Here, he's just brute forcing into the Lyra, knowing that he has that advantage right now and forcing him to sacrifice those camps.
So Gold Coin United coming out strong, coming out swinging. Game number 3 here. And I really want to see how now these advantages transfer over, because in game number 1, when Santorin was kind of on even footing with Lyra, he and Madlife, they wound up going to the bottom side of the map. They took down the first tower early on and then warded up and controlled vision across the map and controlled EnVyUs early game. Game number 2, when Lyra was up in the face of Santorin, Santorin wasn't able to establish the same control and unfortunately had very little effect on GCU's overall gameplay.
We see Lyra not going to go down quietly, though, still looking for invades, meeting up with Hakuho. We talked about how good their synergy was in the previous game. Here, Madlife could be in a little bit of trouble.
Yep, actually walks through that brush, wants to put a ward down, but finds Lyra instead. Has to exhaust on him. The bubble is not going to wind up landing, and that's going to be a kill picked up for Envy.
Nice jungle mid synergy, or jungle support synergy, excuse me, in there. Oh, I talked about how brutal this might be at level 6. And there you see it, both Solo and Santorin being level 6. Santorin not even needing to use the Graves ultimate.
No, I don't even know Santorin needed to go damage there, but now getting aggressive is Ninja onto Phoenix here. Immediately uses the cleanse. Command Shockwave lands on the Lyra, forces the flash out of him as Lyra goes back in though. Phoenix steps forward, gets way too aggressive and pays for it with his life.
This is one of the big problems with Phoenix's mentality that we talk about, is that he's willing to go try and turn these 1v2s after he's already out. Now Mash could be in trouble as well.
Oh, Gold Coin United, they started off so good, but things are turning bad for them now. Mash in a 1v2 situation barely gets out there. They wind up going through the dive. Gold Coin United, though, on the top side of the map, transition that advantage into another tower, but across the map, things are going in favor of Envy.
Yeah, Lyra showing that you can't hold this dude down just because you killed him once. He's able to go get that good double invade off with his support. They turn a kill on Madlife, who was not thinking he had to match that. And here you see Seraph. So hard to try and live in these kinds of situations after getting so far behind early on. It's going to be really rough for him from now on as well. The turret's already down. He's going to be in a long lane. He's going to be under-leveled. And I just have to stress why that mentality out of Phoenix can be such a disaster. Your top lane is going to win this game for you, in a sense, where they're blowing that part of the map totally open. Their tank is going to be so far behind yours. You both have mostly front-to-back team fighting comps, so Envy has a little bit more playmaking. So if you just play out with a much stronger tank from this part on, you're going to be fine. But because you always feel like you need to be able to turn things around, instead of just living through that 1v2, he walks back up aggressively, feeds himself on a platter for Ninja to get a kill, and now this Ari counter pick has the potential to start going off maybe.
It's the same sort of mentality that you might run into in solo queue, where you wind up getting kills across the map, and then somebody else on your team is like, well, I'm just not going to get carried by you. I'm going to try to do it myself. Bottom side of the map, the Gold Coin United walk into a very patiently laid trap by Envy as Lyra helps pick up a kill. Go into Hakua.
Yeah, you talk about carries. Lyra showing up still relevant in this game. Sneaks into the bot lane. You see that chain CC. Really just actually the Varus ultimate. Mash die before it could even pop a heal or anything. Good gank there by Lyra. Started off with the Varus ultimate.
And this also kind of just speaks to how these two teams like to play the game. Gold Coin United, they get their advantages off of Santorin's pathing, invading the jungle aggressively and collapsing as a team. Then they transition it into a first tower gold on the top side and picking up a kill off of the fact that they knew that Seraph was in a disadvantageous matchup. Envy on the other side are moving around the map, picking up kills. They don't care about objectives at this point. They're just getting kills on their carries.
Yeah, I mean, they're trying to stabilize because, as you see, despite how much we're talking about EnVy making good plays, they're still in a 1,000 gold deficit before 10 minutes in the game with their topside turret down. So they still need to find a way to claw back into this game. It's not totally saved yet, but they are making the right moves. They're not trying to stabilize Seraph's lane. They realize any 2v2s they fight up there, they're almost guaranteed to lose. You kind of have to feed them to the wolves at this point and make stuff happen elsewhere on the map. And getting your carries fed is a great way to start that.
Well, they're fighting against history and stats too. Gokwan United 11-0 from the Challenger Series. And just in game number 1 here when they take that first tower of the game. So GCU, when they have the advantages through map pressure, we've seen them been able to control opposing teams, including EnVy here. And now Solo going to lock down on the Ninja, has to burn that Spirit Rush just to get out. Also use the depth charge, of course, but still, that's ultimate for ultimate trade.
And there you see what happens when your top lane tank has a ton of pressure. He's free to roam around the map, try and make plays in other lanes. Forces Ninja's ult out there, which is pretty useful because it does mean that Phoenix is safe for a little bit longer, and he might be able to protect himself now until his flash becomes back available.
Interestingly enough, that's one of the plays that Solo had done on Renekton quite frequently, and we've seen other Nautilus players do this too. They just roam down extremely early on, try to get that gank assist into the mid lane, something you don't normally expect if you're just in the 1v1 mid lane matchup in the early games. And suddenly having a top laner with a ton of CC coming down and just completely turning things around on you. So Solo had been stuck on Shen 2 games in a row. This time around trying to be a little more influential with this Nautilus pickup is now Lyra. You mentioned hopping over the wall. There is a ward over there, but I don't know if Gokwan United specifically saw Lyra jump over. It looks like they may have, because they themselves are inching around the corner here, but Madlife was standing on a ward at the same time. Mash utilizing the Enchanted Crystal Arrow. The tidal wave lands, followed up by a bubble. The CC chain is huge, but so is Apollo as he gets the wild growth out from Hakuo. Seraph and Solo teleported down into this fight. Nobody's gone down yet. It looks like the Dragon may be contested here for Gokwan United. Santorin got chunked down kind of low though, so they gotta be careful. And thus has started the Dragon Dance.
The Dragon Dance has begun. Now it is EnVy's turn to grab the Dragon's attention. The mating dance continues.
It looks like the Dragon has lost interest in both of these potential partners and instead has decided to fall back asleep in his Dragon Pit.
Looks like the partners might have lost interest as well. Seraph gonna recall out here. It's a little too risky for both these teams to force around this objective, and after all that skirmishing, no one's actually gonna go down, no objective's gonna be taken.
Yep, so that's just teleports being burned from both sides. Seraph actually had used his a little bit earlier. We're just grouped up on that side where Solo had teleported in for that fight specifically. So EnVy, while both of them don't have the teleport advantage, will be the first one to get that one back up. But of course, that is on their top laner who is still significantly behind.
Right, but all this is not bad for EnVy overall. The fact that Gokwan United isn't really expanding their lead, given how large it was at the beginning. And like we said, though, you know, Gokwan United are likely to outscale a little bit here with some of their picks, so they're also happy, you know, having this lead early on. It's not like they're super pressured to make plays, but here, Seraph will have his teleport available sooner. Maybe they can look for some kind of global play around the bot lane to get things really back in their favor.
No, the bot lane was surprisingly a hotbed for action in games 1 and 2, and thus far in this game has been a little less so. Although I guess when Madlife went to ward out his blue buff and sniff something was up, Lyra was there, and there was a repeat gank there. And both of the members of EnVy here just patiently waiting for Gokwan United to kind of shove up here. Well, it looks like Gokwan United is not going to take the bait this time. They've been burned too many times before. Yeah,
I mean, last time they walked up, there was a Lyra in the brush. They don't have any good vision control on the bot side. You see their deepest ward is in the Dragon Pit, so they have no idea where Lyra is. Their only deep vision is that pink ward, which they have hidden over behind that mid turret. So GCU's got to find better vision control so that they can keep trying to play aggressively, because right now, Lyra has officially bounced back after that disastrous early game.
And Santorin hasn't been able to get significant CS advantages here. It looks like Solo going to be going for the same repeat gank here. Does not land the dredge line this time, so will not burn any sort of summoners or ultimates from the side of Ninja.
Looks like they want to try and use that pressure, though, to get some of that vision deep in that bot side jungle now. Good plan by Santorin.
He might be getting collapsed on here. Ninja takes a large chunk of damage. The Thunderlord's proc there from Phoenix's Orianna. Chucking them down to at half HP. Ninja's going to sustain himself on that refillable health potion, though, and deny Santorin just being able to go any more forward, as Lyra was wrapping around that side as well. Santorin does not want to contest, though, if there's mid lane pressure against his mid lane.
You need to be a little careful here if you are a GCU. EnVy knows that a lot of your people just went up to the top side. Lyra might swing down and around. We'll have to see what he chooses to do. Similarly, Seraph needs to be careful because at any point, Santorin can show up there and try and burst him out again. It's really hard to itemize as the tank from behind against split damage dealers, because obviously Nautilus mostly magic damage, Graves all physical damage, and when you're playing from behind, it's just delays you from being able to pick up multiple defensive items that much more. Tough spot for Seraph to be in, but he's done okay with the rest of the pressure that his team is putting out. It stops them from being able to snowball that top side.
The best part for Seraph is, spoiler alert, he's still a Maokai. He will eventually do things in the later stages of the game, but how much of a factor he can be for the rest of his team early on, and if EnVy can kind of stem the tide of this early game is the big question. It looks like the response to that question, though, is going to be their bottom side of the map, playing quite well in this game. We already mentioned game number 1 that had a 0.8 combined KDA. Game number 2 was a 13.5 KDA off the back of Hakuo's Lulu and the very interesting Ginsu's Rageblade build coming out from Apollo's Varus. Though while they haven't gotten the first tower of the game, they get the first tower of the bottom lane in this matchup.
Right, they even up the turrets, close to evening up the gold now. Almost no difference between the two teams anymore. And EnVy working their way back into this game, one move at a time. You saw Solo trying to get involved in this game, trying to use his lead. He's doing a good job looking for things, but it's not quite working out. The mobile Ahri pick being probably the most difficult champion to try and make stuff happen on, aside from maybe like a Fizz or an Echo, but it's really hard for him to kind of snowball that top side the way he wants to. Just now, he walked his way down to the bot lane. Maybe they were thinking about a Baron or a Mountain Dragon take, but he has to work his way back up to the top side to deal with the wave. And GCU have not found a way to use the advantage that they had in the early game.
And they also haven't transitioned it into early game vision. And we saw that being a team effort from EnVy to deny Santorin from being able to pressure that forward. A lot of it resides on the fact that Lyra, after the hiccup by his own blue buff, was able to get himself back into this game and become a driving force on this Lee Sin pickup. But between the positioning of Ninja, cutting down into his own jungle to assist Lyra so that Santorin just couldn't clear out those control wards and put vision down, has been key. Because Gold Coin United is definitely a team where if they can't see where they're going, they just don't go.
I mean, that was definitely one of the criticisms we had over them during their time in the Challenger Series, was that they did feel like they lacked that extra gear, the ability to blow a game wide open if they get advantages. And you can kind of see that this game. And if the enemy team does a good job, like you said, contesting the vision, GCU does not like to play without vision. They don't like to play risky. And sometimes you do kind of just need to push the go button and actually make a play happen. And since that one dive in the top lane, they have not made another play.
No, and the gold count has been evened up because of that. So the tower going down on the bottom side, farm advantages on the bottom lane matchup as well as the jungle matchup. Both of these teams now relatively even in gold as another Drake is about to spawned on the map, a Mountain Drake at that one. Both of them actually went for this earlier on, decided to back away. Haven't really seen them contest it quite since then, although it may be a focal point now that there is pressure on the bottom side for EnVy, and the top side will be, for most of the time, where Solo's going to be spending the remaining amount of his lane phase.
We see, once again, the mid lane, not as volatile as we thought it would be, given what we saw in the first time around. Ninja,
no solo kills.
Yeah, giving a little more respect to Phoenix. Phoenix not giving respect to EnVy.
Well, that's to be expected. We saw that in games 1 and 2, so. Looks like EnVy will be starting up on this Mountain Drake, though. The rest of Gold Coin United were just kind of caught backing at that point in time. Santorin might be going for a collateral damage steal, but instead decides that he cannot go in there without the hawk shot there in time. And that's going to be first Dragon of the game, going over to the side of Team EnVy.
Really good timing there by EnVy. Going and starting that Dragon off while all of GCU is basically in the base. They see the Nami holding the mid lane. There's probably only one reason the Nami's doing that. People are not there. EnVy able to grab that Dragon, getting themselves another small advantage here. And if you're GCU, you're getting a little bit worried because you're really struggling to find any kind of plays.
Specifically on the bottom side of the map, now you're getting pushed into your blue side jungle. That means that Phoenix is going to have the potential to be wrapped around on. You don't have that same amount of vision control. And Gold Coin United usually, well, I mean, besides Phoenix, usually plays a little bit more reserved in those situations. We see Hakuo now grouping up with Lyra. We talked about the synergy between Santorin and Mad Life. The synergy between Hakuo and Lyra ever since game 2, this Lulu pick has come in, has been spot on.
Yeah, they've definitely been dominating the bot side of the map. You see about a 30 CS lead on the side of Apollo, and that was not with any kind of crazy early game, oh my god, double kill against my opponent out of nowhere with red buff now. So kind of just generated off the back of Hakuo and Lyra working well together. They get that pick in the jungle, like you said. They get the pick in the bot lane. And then they had the pressure to take the turret as well when they knew that Santorin was on the top side of the map. So playing very intelligently around what GCU is trying to do, as well as the fact, I do like the fact that Ninja started playing a little bit more reserved when he started realizing the potential of the Nautilus roams coming in. He doesn't need to look for a ton of solo kills right now because at any point, Nautilus can show up and try and turn it.
Now, speaking of, we saw Solo hovering around that mid lane area, but Ninja just patiently waiting for the wave to crash into his tower. You mentioned not being over-aggressive, not needing to go for any sorts of solo kills. We're about 19.5 minutes into the game, so Baron's going to be coming up in the map in about 30 seconds or so. At this point in time, in game number 2, EnVy had accrued a massive advantage. In game number 1, it was relatively close at this point. Golkon United wound up taking that game number 1, but things are definitely looking like their tempo's going in EnVy's favor. They get a flash kick down onto MASH over here. The tidal wave, though, is going to disrupt that a bit. EnVy has a little bit of a split focus this one. Lyra and Seraph are on the top side of the fight. Paco and Apollo are on the bottom side of the fight. Now the mid laners are collapsing from the top side as well, but Lyra caught between a rock and a hard place, bubbled up, stunned up, knocked up, goes down.
Seraph and him split up during the retreat. Seraph walking up the river. Lyra trying to break into his own jungle that opens him up to get jumped on by GCU. A little bit of a hectic fight that started off with both Apollo and Lyra going down. And with that, GCU might be able to grab their second turret of the game, grabbing this bot outer.
Well, Golkon United, they don't need a lot of
get that minion wave in there.
Things down. Yeah, they're waiting for the minion wave to get up there. They don't need a lot of advantages to get plays going for them, as they wind up picking up 1 kill and will transition into pressure in the mid lane and a tower down on the bottom side of the map.
GCU quickly grabbing a bigger lead. We'll take another look at that. You see MASH kind of get jumped on. He turns it back around onto Apollo. And then Lyra, a good flash in front by Madlife there, blocking the resonating strike from coming in onto MASH, protecting his AD carry, giving him time to finish off the Varus. And then Lyra, here you see, tries to break down to the bot side, gets jumped on by Solo. Easy follow-up by the rest of the team there. They were still not in a great position because even if they ran up the river, they risked getting cut off by Phoenix. Ninja did have a little bit of an inside track, so maybe he could have escorted them out. But either way, Madlife being kind of the star of that skirmish there, being able to keep his AD carry alive by flashing in front of that Lee Sin Q.
We talked about his Nami being quite effective, but Madlife himself,
yeah,
a really great player. It's still a Madlife, which is extremely difficult to believe that he's playing for the challenger side of this North American LCS promotion tournament.
Right, I mean, especially when he first came over, he didn't look like the Madlife of old, so to speak. He was definitely struggling, and in an interview he was saying that he's just another player. In his mind, he's not this Korean superstar god. He's playing in the NA Challenger Series, so he doesn't have like a big ego coming in, is what he was saying. So he's definitely acclimated to his time here and now playing pretty well. I would definitely say he's got the flashes of brilliance like he used to have.
It's very true. Madlife definitely showing why he was invited over to play on this team, and definitely showing why he's eaten his fair share of the bans in this series, as well as this Nami pickup for him has been quite influential. Now it's EnVy. We just heard from Apollo coming into this game about playing from behind. Looked really good in game number 2, but now it's going to be, are those nerves, are those feelings of, can we actually do this? Are we going to be able to come back from this one against a team of superstars on the side of Golkon United? I mean, Phoenix, extremely strong player, extremely big name. Madlife himself, looks like now that Golkon United is going to get locked up. MASH is already down, Madlife is already down. Santorin falls as well. EnVy just take a fight from seemingly nowhere.
Yeah, EnVy had such great vision control around that bot side of the map. It was extremely risky for GCU to actually try and path down there from the mid lane. They thought that they would roam down there as a group and try and secure some vision of their own, but Ninja was already there. Now Ninja gets jumped on a little by Solo. They're trying to stop them from going from the Baron. It's pretty early into the game. They don't have a ton of damage. This might be really hard for EnVy to grab, but they turn on the Phoenix.
Yeah, they wind up flashing forward to get the twisted advance, but the cleanse is going to come out, but they just immediately lock down on him and pick up a kill. Now Solo, kind of the only one in this area. They don't have a lot of damage on this, and Baron does hurt quite a bit at this point in time. Solo's pretty tanky, though. It does have to flash away, and EnVy might not get that Baron, but they do pick up another kill.
Pretty successful Baron bait either way. You're able to pick up Phoenix, and it would have been nice if you can get it, but they don't get greedy. They back off there. We'll take a look at this play. This is what I was talking about. They don't have any vision, and Ninja has an inside track on Phoenix, goes in and starts his fight off, basically blowing up 3 members of the side of Golkon United. Santorin lives for a little bit before he gets traded back onto there. And that's one of the things I was about to say is that EnVy, throughout this entire game, despite the fact that they've been down from the very beginning, basically, they've always had better vision control, and especially around the bot lane. Hakuho, Lyra have been combining extremely well to make sure that Golkon United doesn't really feel safe in anything that they do. And And right there, you see why. You can't just run down there because you think you're stronger at this point in the game. Positional advantage still matters a ton, and Ninja's able to make a huge play.
Yeah, even myself as a caster did not see that one coming. I was in Goldcoin United shoes in that one. Completely dark on that side of the map, and not quite having the same strengths as it did in game number 1, which means that EnVy, while they are not at the gold advantage as they had in game number 2, are being able to deny one of the crucial things that makes Goldcoin United tick, which is the fact that they love having vision control, they love establishing presence on an area, and they love setting up plays to happen before actually going for them. Although, as I say that, Goldcoin United, they put a couple of wards down on the bottom side of the map now that they knew that EnVy controlled the vision over there. And with those wards down on that side, they send Santorin to solo out the Dragon, and send Ocean Drake for themselves their first of the game.
I'm not sure how much of that was a trade that EnVy is consciously going for, if they just were not aware that Santorin was soloing that one out, or if they wanted to get vision on the top side to let Ninja try and grab that top outer turret. I'm not exactly sure if that was a conscious choice or not, but either way, it's going to be traded for the mid lane outer turret as well. GCU grabs all 3 outer turrets. Now EnVy still have to try and break down that mid one.
Yep, so they trade tower for tower and Drake, going slightly in favor of Goldcoin United, although both teleports are used. Ninja being the other teleport that actually wound up getting channeled here for the side of EnVy. So Solo loses his. Seraph still has his available. So in the tank versus tank split push match, EnVy still have teleport advantage. Chanto Crystal Arrow goes wide into the left, does not lock down on Nash. Goldcoin United back away.
Good attempt, though, given the fact that Ninja was still up in that top lane split pushing. They're trying to force him out of there indirectly by making things happen elsewhere on the map. They don't have great vision up there, and they're scared of kind of walking into him again. We saw how bad that can go if you're not careful. But now they force him out. They're going to try and get some vision control back in that top side, and GCU needs to find a way to start contesting this vision better because they have been blind relative to EnVy over the course of this game, and it's stopped them from being able to snowball at all.
Nope, and a lot of that may come from the back of this Ashe pickup for Mash. It's the 3rd game in a row he's wound up picking it up. He has the Hawk Shot available. If he's going to group up with Santorin and Madlife and do, well, what they're doing right now, this may be the way that Goldcoin United starts taking back some of the control of the vision. They go in, they pick up the Scuttle Crab around the Baron buff area, so there's that for themselves. Goldcoin United, hey, they're listening. They want to put down vision control. They want to start contesting for it. Now they're actually going for a little bit of an aggressive invade onto this blue buff. They see Seraph down on the bottom side, duo lane, actually 3 members strong from EnVy in the mid lane. They know that this top side of the map is theirs to control. Yeah,
but they got to be careful because Solo burned his teleport to secure that mid outer turret. That's why you see him hovering around the top side. He knows if he's bottom, they have to be worried about getting TP engaged on while they're going through that vision control. So I like this idea for what GCU just did there. Leave Solo grouped up with your team while you secure the vision. Once you have it, to make sure EnVy doesn't have control around Baron, then you recall the Nautilus. You don't have to be terrified of a Maokai split push. It's not that strong. So good macro play there by GCU to try and get some vision down and make sure that this Baron isn't totally under the control of EnVy.
Well, as they put that vision control down, they've been able to get the Scuttle Crab. EnVy pushing up towards the mid lane and the bottom lane, forces GCU to back away. Ari's pushing in the top lane as well, so GCU goes away, and EnVy immediately swoops in and starts controlling Baron vision for themselves. While the Scuttle Crab is something they can't quite clear out, all of the wards in the area, save for one over by their blue buff from GCU, have been cleared out. So
yeah, Solo needs to keep moving down, or up, I should say, to try and potentially join in on a team fight. This is why you saw them trying to get vision control around Baron, because without that teleport advantage, Nautilus feels so pressured to keep trying to group up with his team. And EnVy running this 1-3-1 with pressure with Ninja in the top lane is so good for them because they have vision control to stop any kind of cutoff from being able to get to him.
Yeah, more importantly, Ninja taking the teleport this game on the Ahri was something we didn't touch upon coming out of Champions Slip. We've already seen it be utilized once to kind of try to match Solo's teleport in the mid lane here. And now Seraph using that teleport towards the mid lane with Ahri collapsing in from the top side. Ahri's teleport relatively close to being off of cooldown, so Ninja does not necessarily have to join in at this point in time. Instead, EnVy's kind of on stalling duty, but they're utilizing a combination of ultimates here from Goldcoin United to start off a fight. They've locked out on the Seraph, but that's still a tanky tree. He's not going to get cut down that easy. They burn a lot, including the wild growth to keep Seraph alive, but EnVy back away.
Yeah, but getting that only costs them their Ashe Arrow, and they now have the inside track around the mid lane turret, and EnVy are not in a great position to contest it. They're going to lose their mid-inner turret off that, and they might lose more.
Yeah, they're actually not able to get that top lane tower either because Ahri is now recalled back to base, so now the mid lane inhibitor tower is being pressured down. As you mentioned, Tidal Wave and Arrow being used from Goldcoin United. Their initiation isn't 100% there, but Ahri teleporting into the backside onto a ward, trying to cut everybody off, cuts the wave as well, but it's not a tanky Maokai flank, it's a squishy Ahri flank, and with the 5 members strong of Goldcoin United grouped up as a unit, Ari cannot go in, unless you might be looking for a charm. Lands on Santorin, but he's got plenty of shields and heals to keep him home.
Touching on that teleport for the Ari, which we neglected to talk about until now, I think it was mostly two things. One, a reaction to the fact that Ninja did not feel confident in his ability to solo kill Phoenix. And obviously, I think it's still better to go with the Ignite because that's really what you're picking the Ari champion for. If you want to do some kind of split push with an assassin, there's other things you can go with. But given the fact that he doesn't feel confident in his ability to 1v1 Phoenix, setting up these 1-3-1s work as well. You get to see that the Ari flank is not particularly effective. You don't want to use it to start a fight off. It's more about the fact that when you are splitting, you can join the fight. You don't need to worry about leaving your team in a 4v5 during your time splitting away.
Well, Ninja may not have felt as effective against Phoenix in the lane phase of this game. However, he is currently 2-0-3 compared to his opponent's 0-2-0. So Ninja, this Ari pickup, something he didn't necessarily play a lot of in the regular season in the NALCS, but has definitely become a more popular pick in recent amounts of time. We saw Froggen playing it a lot. We saw Piglet on Team Liquid, who's over on the second stream, playing that one quite frequently, even getting it banned out. Now Ninja seems to kind of have found a new comfort pick for himself, which could bode extremely well for Envy, considering he was a little bit of their weak point in overall throughout the NALCS.
Yeah, I really like the Ari pick on him. We talk about how he's a playmaker. Ari has that. For playmaking can also be used defensively, so sometimes Ninja has some positioning problems, but with the Ari pick, you're always able to reposition in the team fight, basically. And he does find good angles on enemy carries, so I do like the Ari pick a lot, but you gotta find a way to deal with this push.
Yeah, his team's gonna need the Ari pick. We split push in the top lane, so GCU decides to go forward towards the mid lane, chunking down on that inhibitor tower as Lyra is the one that's gonna be trying to wrap around and meets up with Ninja over there. Goldcoin United, though, going to rinse and repeat, just run away.
Yep, GCU doing a little bit of push and pull. Almost land the arrow onto Lyra. Good flash there. And I do think it was important to flash that because we talk about how GCU's front line is so much further ahead. Just compare Solo to Seraph right now. He's got basically an extra item up on him. You see Seraph is close to completing his Guardian Angel, but he's still down a little bit. And Solo would out-tank him pretty heavily here, so.
2,000 gold advantage in favor of Solo over Seraph, just in and of themselves. So that is a massive lead for the tank versus tank matchup. And Solo demonstrating that in kind, gets charmed up, takes a bit of damage, but barely any HP bar winds up moving. But Envy still not just kind of sitting back and taking this one. Instead, just going to moving up towards that Baron Pit area, continuously pressuring out against Goldcoin United. Phoenix is up in that top lane now, so Envy know that there's no teleport on that mid laner. They're going to start positioning around their second Mountain Drake of the game.
They have to be a little careful when they go for that pressure, though, because GCU can, of course, rotate up to the top side and start threatening the Baron. Looks like they're going to have Lyra start this one off. Santorin up near the Baron. I wonder if Envy's going to have to try and react to this one.
Well, Envy still have Lyra on that Mountain Drake, and they decide to peel off that one. They are going to go and react to this one, Mark. Teleport is not quite available for Seraph. Just a couple seconds left on that one. The Baron, though, is going to get peeled off on here. Solo trying to go on to Ninja, but you mentioned that slippery Ari pickup. Not going to be easy to lock up. Uses the Spirit Rush, gets herself out of there. Goldcoin United peel off a Baron.
But the most important thing was Envy was able to stop the Baron. Now they have control of the mid wave. They might be able to transition this down into a Dragon. Looks like they're going to choose to back off instead. Ari without her ultimate, a lot less effective. They also lost the Varus ultimate. And right now, GCU has everything available aside for their depth charge on the Nautilus. So they have a lot of tools to bait around here once again, which is what they're going for.
There they go. Tidal Wave and Enchanted Crystal Arrow are available. Goldcoin United, though, does not have a lot of their damage here as Mash is starting to just chunk away that mid lane. The teleport's being channeled in, though, from Seraph. He's going to want to go in the middle of the team. Ninja gets blocked up by the Command Shockwave. Phoenix uses that on just one. The Tidal Wave comes out as Mad Life drops down kind of low. Rips across Envy. The Enchanted Crystal Arrow locks down on the Seraph. The Wild Guard had already been spent, and Mash picks up a kill onto Maokai. Envy wind up trading one.
Envy pick up the first kill of the fight, but they're not done yet. They need to get more off this. They're forcing around the Baron again. Lyra still alive with his smite. A lot of members are pretty low, but most cooldowns are down, but Ninja's ult is back available. He might be able to find an opening here.
A little risky. Going forward is Ninja. Forces the flash trade out from Phoenix there. Baron about 3,000 HP with a flash re-engage from Solo. They've locked down onto Hakuo. Lyra kicks him back, and they've actually procced the shield coming out from Santorin on that Hex Drinker. Sorry, the Maw of the Malmortius. So Goldcoin United have to back away.
A little surprised to see GCU try and turn off there. They don't have any huge follow-up with the Nautilus flash hook. I don't hate the idea of trying to turn, I shouldn't say. I just mean that going that hard with the turn with your Ash arrow down, Your Nami tidal wave not available. They did not have a great way to follow up on that attempt by Solo there. And after a very, very tense couple of minutes, we are left with the Baron and Mountain Dragon still available.
And it was a 1-for-none trade in favor of Goldcoin United. So just 1 kill picked up in that. That means the gold counts are still extremely close, just a couple hundred in favor of Goldcoin United. 7 kills to 6, 4 towers to 2. So this, while Goldcoin United looked very similar to this position in game number 1, they definitely felt like they had a more commanding lead in the game. The gold counts didn't necessarily reflect that, the tower counts didn't reflect that, but the map pressure did, and they just don't have it.
Right, they're not nearly as far ahead this time around. The big thing is GCU has a much better late game team fighting comp, and they're using it to keep baiting around this Baron.
They got the teleport out of Ahri, the Enchanted Twister out, they lock on the Seraph again, it's a tanky member. Looks like the Dredge line did not connect, and the
Nami tidal wave went the wrong way.
Yeah, Chain of Corruption was used and it wound up locking down the Santorin and only spread to Solo, but without that Nami tidal wave, without the Ash Enchanted Crystal Arrow, EnVy could just force GCU back away from this Baron yet again.
GCU are getting a little antsy with their Baron play this time around. They don't have any good deep vision. They have the teleport advantage. They could be trying to set up a 4-1 or something, but instead they just keep going right back to the Baron and forcing EnVy to walk into them. It has not been successful so far, and they lose their last outer turret as a result.
Yep, so that's going to be EnVy taking the 3rd and final outer tower of the game against Goldcoin United. Gives them a little bit of a gold lead, although 1,000 gold about the 35-minute mark. Not the biggest lead in the game.
Pretty negligible, but I think it's important to note where these gold leads are individually, because the only front line that EnVy really has is that Maokai, and you saw how quickly, or gold deficit, excuse me, the Maokai is behind. So it's very easy for GCU to actually focus him down and burn him. They also have better late game carries in the Orianna and Graves. So if they're just fighting front to back over and over, it's actually totally fine to focus down the tank in this situation for GCU. And that's the scary thing if you're EnVy is, unless Ninja is able to find these kind of openings onto members of GCU, it's very hard for them to win these team fights. And if GCU was playing this a little more patient, which is something I usually don't say about GCU, if they were actually setting up deep vision, if they were trying to use their teleport advantage to the fullest potential, they might be able to start finding some better team fights here. But for now, EnVy has withstood the GCU Baron bait, and they also grabbed that Mountain Dragon.
Yeah, so second Mountain Dragon of their own means that EnVy's own Baron bait could potentially be devastating, or their split push could be even more effective, because you're doing 20% increased damage to those towers, to those epic monsters on the map. But Seraph, seemingly recognizing the fact that he has been behind in this matchup, forgoes the Sunfire Cape, which is the split push threat, which is the I'm going to eventually, you know, push things down and be a little bit more damagey on the side lanes and get things rolling. Instead, just gets his 2 key defensive items. Frozen Heart, very crucial against the double auto attackers coming out from the Graves and the Ash, but also picked up the Spirit Visage for himself. Sustained, gets the extra reduction against the magic damage coming out, but has a Guardian Angel, so when he gets locked up in the front line like this from Goldcoin United, he has that second life to buy his team a little bit more time to survive, so kind of effective tankiness in there.
True, but whenever he loses half his health, it makes it much easier for GCU to not have to worry about baiting.
Yeah.
Because they're able to kill half of a tank now and still come out ahead.
Yep. That was something we mentioned during the, I believe it was the BTN finals, not that long ago. I guess earlier this week. Sounds like it was forever ago.
Feels forever ago.
Yeah, it feels like a long time ago. I just spent way too much time with you, I guess. I don't know why.
Hey,
but
get me out of here.
when your tank gets chunked out like that at the beginning of a fight or before a fight even breaks out, you just lose so much effective team fight power because your front line is basically at half power.
Exactly, and especially when GCU doesn't have to use any real resources to do so. They basically hit a dredge line, they land a bubble, you drop a bunch of damage onto them, but you have all your ultimates available, and now their tank's at half health. It's very hard for EnVy to fight from that position when they need to face check potentially around Baron. Luckily, they've done a really good job of always having some form of vision already on the Baron pit. GCU have really not done a great job of contesting vision in this situation or all early game. Once again, Seraph gets hooked out though.
GCU sniffed something out there, and with Lyra away on the top side of the map, they collapse. Seraph has to get the wild growth out from Hakuo's Lulu, so while EnVy were trying to spring a trap here, Goldcoin United, now they have the inside track to mid lane inhibitor tower.
Right, they can potentially just escort this minion wave down. You don't have to be too worried about EnVy going for Baron buff. They're extremely low. Just leave 1 or 2 members to make sure they don't do that. And now you see them, they're going to grab this inhibitor turret. They can probably grab the inhibitor as well, as EnVy is actually trying to recall from the jungle.
Yeah, it looks like EnVy here.
Backing off.
Yep, they will wind up backing off on the side of Gold Coin United. EnVy might be looking for the collapse right here. They had a slight gold lead coming into this fight, but now it's Gold Coin United who, after that tower, gonna have it slightly swinging in their favor. But EnVy, they want to give chase. They want to give haste to this one. Teleport coming in from the side of Seraph. They want to try to collapse on this one, but Gold Coin United backing away towards the Baron Pit area. Use the Enchanted Crystal Arrow, but it's a field goal. 3 points goes over to MASH. But EnVy still looking to try to contest Gold Coin United here.
Yeah, they know that they're not on the Baron. They still have vision control on that, but it looks like they're just hungry for a fight. They've been struggling to find an opportunity to open up on GCU for a while now. And without the Enchanted Crystal Arrow down, looks like they want to go on anybody. They're going to open up on Solo.
Yeah, the tank in the front line is going to get locked up by the Twisted Advance, but he's got some shields and heals of his own between this Nami and Orianna combo. Lyra is going to wind up going in and popping back out. So EnVy and Gold Coin United dividing the map in a different kind of way here as GCU are retreating through their own red buff area.
Seraph just trying to stop the tanky front line of GCU to get around to this turret. It's going to buy enough time for EnVy to grab their 4th turret of the game.
Ooh, but the fight has been engaged onto Lyra. The tidal wave goes across, only winds up picking up onto Seraph. Redemption winds up getting used as well, but now Lyra walking forward, gets command shockwave, dropping down extremely low. Mash does not have the arrow to use, but Lyra in the backside is trying to slow down Madlight, but they caught Ninja, and Phoenix gets that kill. Madlight gets kicked over the wall, but Lyra delivers himself into Phoenix. A double kill picked up for Orianna, and now Seraph, he's dropped extremely low. Guardian Angel is still available, but I don't know if Hakuo is going to be able to keep him alive through this one. They have Solo coming around the backside to cut him off. Hook lands, he winds up blocking him up. Seraph gets the sap magic to heal himself up. Twisted advances forward. That's going to be a Guardian Angel popped. Gold Coin United, as soon as this tree comes up, it goes back down. Eventually, and it's 3 kills in favor of GC.
And the Baron buff will be available as well. 3 members dead on the side of EnVy. The jungler, importantly, will not be there to smite contest this at all. GCU, huge shockwave by Phoenix there as EnVy got a little too over-aggressive trying to punish GCU in the jungle. They funneled through that choke point where Phoenix is able to land a big shockwave. And then also important, Solo was able to get a lot of CC down onto Ninja, who got caught out as well. So here you see not a great engage at the start by GCU, but Phoenix over the wall here hiding, gets a big shockwave down, well, forces the flash out of Apollo, chunks Lyra really low, and then they focus down Seraph. Here's that CC onto Ninja, gets knocked up by the depth charge, chain CC'd, taken out quickly, and then now it's just too hard to win from that position.
Yeah, and Gold Coin United showcasing in this fight that when it gets later on in the team fight stages of this game, that they are the team that comes out ahead. They wound up winning the Challenger Series finals against United 3-1 off the back of some very coordinated team engagements and fights. They had the original inside track that got that inhibitor tower. EnVy then tried to get their own inside track towards the mid lane, but Gold Coin United said, no, we just done this. We know how this works, and they get the proper engage down.
Yeah, EnVy just getting a little too greedy there. They already took the turret. They saw the Nami tidal wave go down. And they wanted to try and punish GCU a little bit more, and they overextend a little bit into the jungle and go down. And I gotta say, Phoenix, even though the shockwave didn't connect onto Apollo, it put him in a bad position where he's not actually over the wall quite yet, and his flash and heal's already down. And I like his build better this game as well, skipping out on that Rylai's, which he grabbed in the previous game, which I didn't think was too effective, going with the death cap here. Focusing a lot more on the big combos as opposed to the burns and the slope.
And a lot of magic penetration too, as he's picked up the Void Staff in addition to that Leandri's Torment, so he's going to be hitting like a truck with that Death Cap picked up as well. Elder Dragon seems to be the focus for Gold Coin United, so while they have the Baron buff, they're not using it to escort minion waves, instead using it to buy some time against this Dragon. The Enchanted Crystal Arrow winds up going a little bit wide, as you wind up dodging out from the Dredge line follow-up here. Solo's in the front line, does not look like he's taken any damage whatsoever, as this Elder Dragon's still wailing away. Lyra winds up coming in for the steal, but it's going to be Santorin whose smite is superior. The Dredge line winds up landing onto Apollo. The Wild Growth is out, but he's going to wind up getting taken down in that fight. But they are able to wind up killing it onto MASH. Ninja's in the back line, though. The Redemption has gone out, but that's going to wind up picking up another kill for Santorin, a double kill for the jungler. He wins the smite, he wins the fight.
And you get to see why Graves is such a powerful pick in the late game, able to function like a third carry for the side at GCU after Ninja made a pretty great play to finish off both Phoenix and MASH, taking out the backline carries of GCU, but they have an extra one available in Santorin, and he's able to trade back onto Ninja, resulting in a 3-for-2 overall, and what was a pretty risky Elder Dragon Force, all things considered. Lyra had a pretty good look at stealing that one, and I don't think GCU would have won that fight if they were going up against a double Elder Dragon burning EnVy team.
No, Gold Coin United, though, come out ahead with the superior smite powers of Santorin. They get themselves an inhibitor and a tower off the back, but like you said, was a very risky force on this Elder Dragon.
And they whiff their Ash Arrow once again here. After that engage fails, they just say, all right, let's hard focus onto this Elder Dragon. You see Santorin and Mash hitting this one. Lyra, EnVyUs right there, almost gets the Q smite combo. Santorin's actually able to secure it. And then after this fight, it looks like it's going to be all GCU, but Ninja gets a good turn here, getting right onto the backline of Phoenix and Apollo, or excuse me, Mash Me. And the big thing there was also Lyra was able to follow up a little bit as well. He rode the Q in off the QRQ combo, and they bursted the backline of GCU, but Santorin able to play a little bit of cleanup there.
It's Goldcoin United now. Aspect of the Dragon ignited on 3 members. Baron buff, still I believe just on solo, if not a couple extra members. No, Baron buff actually looks like it has fallen off at this point in time. So while they don't have the minion pushing power buff, they still wind up having this Aspect of the Dragon for a couple more seconds. So EnVy are going to be very, very afraid of taking a straight-up fight. Gold in favor for Goldcoin United by about 4,000 gold, which, although we're at the 45-minute mark, isn't the largest gold differential in the world. Most of it going to be on the fact that Solo still has basically 5.5 items compared to the 4.5 items or so completed by the side of Seraph. So that front line for Goldcoin United can be a little bit stronger. Now 5-1 and 7 strong for Santorin. Picked up a Guardian Angel of his own on top of what looks to be a very offensive build from the Greys. Maul the Malmortius, Black Cleaver, Warrior Enchantment, gone for that Phantom Dancer as well.
A very strong Graves. I guess I was a little surprised that they were forcing around that Elder Dragon. They were only about 2,000 gold ahead. Baron does not really give you any advantage in that situation. I would have thought they would have used it for more pushing, but hey, they got it. They got the inhibitor, and now they're forcing down around the bot lane.
Yep, the Aspect of the Dragon buff has fallen off, though, so this is just straight up Goldcoin versus EnVy. We're going to see Ninja getting locked up, and he tries to dash into the backline. All of the CC gets used, and Ninja and Lyra both wind up going down. Redemption's going to keep Goldcoin United healthy as Solo's Guardian Angel was popped, and Santorin replaces him on the front line. The inhibitor tower goes down, and so will the inhibitor.
Solo's going to recall. He has his teleport available. He's going to come back in on one of these super creeps, and GCU look like they might be able to end the game here. Apollo very low, hard to deal with Phoenix and actually walk up and wave clear here.
Yeah, so Apollo, Hakuo, and Sarah trying to hold on for their team's lives here in game number 3. Vengeful Maelstrom has been popped. Solo taking a lot of damage, but both Nexus towers wind up going down. The Nexus is exposed, and as much as EnVy try to fight this one, I don't know if they're going to be able to stop the onslaught. Apollo goes down, and that's going to seal the victory here for GCU. They're going to take the lead in this best of 5, 2-1 as soon as they kill this Nexus. 2 games to 1.
And we talk about EnVy in game 3s, keeping that alive, struggling there. After a disastrous early game, they did a decent job stabilizing, but they could never really turn the game back in their favor. GCU, despite some difficulties securing vision, are still able to find the fights. Their tank was much further ahead. They had the better late game carries, and they're able to win a couple team fights to close the game out.
And it's not very often that you see, specifically in competitive play, the fact that a tank top laner and a damage-dealing jungler like the Santorin and Solo combination were really able to run away with the game after those early game advantages. It took a very long time for Goldcoin United to kind of catch back up to the advantages that they have and utilize them properly with their composition. But 4-0 and 10 for Solo, 6-1 and 10 for Santorin. Really strong performances out of both of them.
Yeah, and I like their idea initially of going top and trying to snowball that lead. The problem was the other parts of the map were not going in their favor. Phoenix getting a little too aggressive, and Lyra showing that even when things don't go his way early on, he still can play the game out from behind.
Yeah, and EnVy, I mean, we saw that they were able to kind of come back into this one, but they were struggling still to push those advantages they gained normally around the 20-minute mark into later game advantages. A lot of it was just the fact that their front line wasn't as tanky, and they weren't able to necessarily play the positioning game against Goldcoin United because of it.
Right, I mean, you saw how easy it was for them to kind of chain CC up Seraph there and not have to worry about getting traded back on at all. A dredge line into a Nami bubble, and you just hit the tank until he gets low enough that it's hard for EnVy to actually contest these team situations.
Yep, and Goldcoin United definitely had a little bit better teamwork in that one too. The Phoenix's shockwaves were more on point in this game, and things looked more cohesive as a unit when they got into that team fight phase.
Yeah, and I think you have to give a lot of credit to the entire team because they seemingly knew how to play their team fights out pretty well. The big problem was more the vision control, but that's something that hopefully they'll get some advice from Loco Doco on between games.
Yeah, well, Goldcoin United jump out to a 2-1 series lead. And now for an in-depth look at that game, let's send it over to Dash and Freak.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Gold Coin United out in front, 2-1 here, so match point for them going into Game 4. But let's break down here Game 3, because at the conclusion of Game 2, we talked a lot about team composition, champion select, and the differing approaches between these two teams. I, in particular, was not happy with the way that Team EnVy had been drafting. Well, guess what, Freak? They took my advice, or maybe they didn't take my advice, but they built the kind of comp that I wanted to see them build. We got a nice little frontliner here between the two of them. We've got some really surefire engage. All right, Dash is happy.
Yes.
But give me your thoughts here quickly on champion select, and then we'll move into the game itself.
Yeah, so what I really like, I want to point out these 3 bans here. So, okay, the Ziggs ban, right? You're banning AP, bot laner, AP top laner, AP jungler. What's very interesting, though, is this Rumble ban and this Camille ban, because in Game 1, EnVy doesn't ban Camille, and they don't ban Rumble because Camille beats up Rumble. And if EnVy goes for magic damage top laner, they're like, that's cute, we'll play Camille, we'll camp it. They showed that it worked for them in the finals of Challenger. So as soon as they see the Camille ban, the Rumble counterpick, they're like, just kidding, you can't have it. And so these bans remain the same, and specifically the Rumble is a reactionary ban to Camille, because if you can't play magic damage bot lane, magic damage top lane, you can't get that Jason Talon that he so wants to play in the mid lane. What's funny, though, is they let him play Ahri, which is basically Jason Talon in magic damage form, so it's not really changing that much, because they're blinding the Orianna down here and saying, yes, please, go for the default counter pick, which is a champion you're comfortable playing. So I don't love this so much. Of course,
I would have just liked to see these 2 picks reversed.
Yeah, honestly,
Save your mid laner for the counter.
You already see you're against Luluveris, right? The Nami's coming in no matter what. Why not go for counter pick? Phoenix is clearly your marquee player, at least in my opinion.
Yes.
I think you give him counter pick. Of course, that said, this game worked out, so I can't hate, too badly.
Exactly. I mean, I'm 100% with you on the bans. Love the ban strategy here. I think it's very intelligent in terms of...
And they force Seraph off champs that he's shown he's good at.
Well, that's the thing, right? We've already seen that their plan is to abuse the top lane as much as they can. And then, yes, with these bans, they are also pigeonholing kind of the flexibility in draft from EnVy. But let's return to my point about how I like this draft.
You like the Maokai.
Because you mentioned, well, Gold Coin United still came out with the win. So how could I like this draft if it loses? Well, I like the draft, but Freak, why doesn't this work?
Well, let's show you why it works. Actually, we've got some clips of why it isn't working for Team EnVy, and it's they're not very good at team fighting. Seraph is on the Maokai. He turns off the ult and then engages. I love the ult as Maokai engage. They run through a shockwave. Yeah, let's go for the 5-on-5s because Tidal Wave was down, and then Seraph's hitting nobody. Apollo to burn all his summoners.
Yeah, he just right. a flash heal out of that Orianna ult, which makes him very easy to jump on top of here. And so this is exactly to your point where, hey, team fighting comps are fantastic for teams that team fight well.
Yeah.
If you don't team fight well, then the kit is not very usable. In that situation, you would like more individually powerful champions and to spread the map out, right? Look for small skirmishes or 1v1s. Maybe that's what'll suit EnVy more.
Right, and that's the problem, right? Is like you can do results-based analysis all you want. It says, well, they picked a comp that can't team fight. Why don't you pick team fight comps? You pick a comp that can team fight. Why don't you just pick comps that win lane and try to win the game that way? Like, it's obviously, I'm sure they've tried both looks of it, and there's a reason that EnVy's been mostly picking lane phase teams. Again, I don't know what's actually correct for them. I haven't seen all their scrims. I don't know what's been the 80% win rate versus the 70% win rate, or loss rate, I guess, in this case. But either way, right, the team fight comp isn't working in the coordination. When Seraph said, "Oh, I'm going to lose game. I'm going to lose lane of this champion," he tried really hard to make sure he lost lane of this champion. He started the game like 0-3-1, right? So issues here. Gold Coin United, props to them. Phoenix stepped up, did a lot better than the Orianna.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the thing, returning to your point here about EnVy, where it's like, I know we're throwing this criticism at them, and I don't expect them to be able to make the changes between Game 1 and Game 2 to magically be able to play every type of team composition. Where my frustration lies is that this team has had essentially 10 weeks of just the actual season play to figure out a lot of these things, and yet the growth hasn't necessarily been there for them as a team, right? As a whole. Again, we're looking at Lyra and saying this dude's one of the best junglers in all of North America, and yet he's on the 10th place team. Okay, individual skill is there. How do you play as a team? They still have not found an identity, and guess what? They're on their back foot now going into Game 4, match point in the promotion tournament, and they've got to win 2 in a row here and then go on to win another best-of-5 series, right? They still got a long way ahead of them to get out of this tournament.
Yep, long way ahead for Team EnVy, but do want to give props to Gold Coin United. Mad Life came in, I think, week 2 or week 3. I think it was week 2 of the Challenger Series, right? They very quickly ramped back up, won the Challenger Series. Like, the regular season wasn't too great. They tied for 2nd and 3rd, and then managed to win Challenger. They lost 1 game in 2 BO5s going through the Challenger playoffs. So this team has stepped up. Again, Phoenix and Mad Life look great. The rest of the team playing well around it. props to them for accelerating their gameplay, closing games out faster throughout the series, and they look pretty sharp.
Exactly. 2-1 in the lead here for Gold Coin United. We have to take a quick break, but when we return, we'll see if Gold Coin United can close out this series or if EnVy can strike back. Don't touch that browser.
No chance, Mari. Nice, go. I look Lee. Nice, go.
I can heal you.
Push. I'm okay. Slow. Let them engage. Hook. And then KD. Here. Okay, and then. I'm on Malkai.
That's good.
Good job, guys. Good game.